Time now for Storm Watch. We'll check things out for you in the plains in just a moment. But right now, let's get an idea of what is happening with all that moisture left over from Frank. Let's go ahead and check that out with our tropical update.
Well, thanks, Jim. Our tropical update time, and we will go to the Pacific, and let's see what's left of Frank and what's going on there in Southern California. Here's a visible imagery this morning, and you can see it looks like a pretty nasty cloud swirl out there. We'll see in the IR that it is just low clouds and not too much to worry about tropical-wise, but the moisture from it has come up over Southern California and brought very muggy, humid weather, along with it some isolated thunderstorms and some rain as well. And if we look at the infrared imagery, you can see here's a swirl down here and it's almost invisible. The reason it's almost invisible is because the clouds are low, and in this infrared image we're sensing the temperature of the cloud tops. So high cloud is streaming off over the top, but nothing to worry about there other than some rains in Southern California. And we have seen quite a bit. You can see some rain moving through Los Angeles, although it's light right now. Moved through the islands earlier. And out in the desert as well, we've had some isolated thunderstorms in here. We'll have to keep an eye on that as the surface heats up. We could see some more nasty thunderstorms later in the day. Of course, the reason behind this is that normally we have a very strong cap on weather over Southern California with a very strong, what we call inversion, which is a temperature increase with height that keeps a very stable lid on the environment. With this tropical system, that inversion is completely gone, and it's allowed the tropical moisture to come in, and of course we've got the result, which is rain and a little bit of upward motion. This should continue to push to the north a little bit. Santa Barbara is still generally in the typical weather mode, as is up toward Vandenberg, but Southern California, you should see this the next 12 to 24 hours. Now farther out into the Pacific Ocean, we've been monitoring one system here that's moving to the west. It's not too well organized yet, but it could become a tropical depression in the next 12 to 24 hours. Right now it's of no interest to anybody along the coast since it's moving to the west, but we'll keep a monitor on that, and you can too by watching the Weather Channel. Now out in the Atlantic Basin, it's been very, very quiet. However, there's one thing to sort of keep in mind. Look at the difference in the Gulf of Mexico now as compared to a couple weeks ago. A lot of thunderstorm activity all over the place. Ill-organized, nothing developing there, weak high pressure at the surface, but still a lot more convectively active or thunderstorm active, and that's typical of the late summer and the hurricane season. Now as we go down here in the Caribbean, we have some typical trade winds here, but they're not near as strong as they have been. We have a tropical wave in here which has a little bit of a swirl to it, right about in there, and that swirl we'll have to keep an eye on. That's above the surface right now, and this wave is not at the ground, but some thunderstorms, it's generally moving to the west-northwest, should affect Jamaica here in another 6 to 12 hours with some late afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Now out in the central Atlantic, we've seen a beautiful day in the islands out here again, shaping up to be wonderful. And down in here you saw the sun glint going by there. That's the sun reflecting off the ocean surface back to the satellite in this visible image. We have a pretty good tropical wave up here, very nicely defined curvature to it. That's cyclonic curvature. However, there's not much in the way of thunderstorms near the axis of the wave. So if there is any development, it'll be very, very slow. Now, as we go off to the African coast here, we've seen a series of tropical waves move off the coast, some of which have been apparently strong when they first come off, and then they weaken. Now this one here has been fairly strong as well. And we have a surface low pressure center that's just to the south-southeast of the Cape Verde Islands. So we'll have to watch this system. It's a long way from nowhere right now. But typically the very strong ones will start out fairly brisk out here and continue on developing. So stay tuned to the Weather Channel for that. And finally, out in the far western Pacific, we've been watching and monitoring Tropical Storm Penny. Here it is here. Continues to move to the north. It's going to break up over land over South China, but still producing quite a bit of shower activity over that area. So that's pretty much a look at the tropical weather. Now in the Atlantic, don't think you're out of luck, or in luck. Always be prepared, because the heart of the hurricane season is yet to come. Let's get back to Jim Cantore now with local weather.
Thank you very much, Steve. You know, yesterday I'm wondering why all this rain would not make its way all the way into Southern California, and you just answered that question for me. So now I don't have to worry about that one anymore. All right, strong storms from the southwest, possible with all that leftover moisture and, of course, the intense heat. We've already got a couple of pods of rain in Arkansas and southern Nebraska, and we'll see storms develop along the Front Range again. Yesterday, what an afternoon around Denver and Colorado Springs. Huge thunderstorms, hail, wind, tornadoes. We had tremendous rainfall as well, so just a miserable day there. So keep an eye out. No flood watches at this time, so good news, but we may see some heavy rain from the southwest all the way through the southern plains.
We're tracking thunderstorms in the northeast and triple-digit heat in Texas. For up-to-the-minute information to help you get through your week, watch Weather Center next.
Allergies making your home unlivable? Then remove pollen.
Buy it at Lowe's, and you can get it installed too.
Burbers, plushes, sculptures, pile.
Lowe's has flooring to the ceiling.
When it comes to home improvement,
Lowe's knows.
Right now, it's your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
First of all, on a personal note, I want to thank all of you for your remedies on the hiccups. I really appreciate your care there. It was quite an embarrassing moment. Needless to say, it's time for Storm Watch. We've got to look at some storms producing some heavy rain in the northeast, and also look at the tropics, our tropical update with Dr. Steve Lyons.
Well, thank you, Jim. We have a few hiccups out there in the Atlantic, but nothing to get too worried about right now. Let's have a look what's going on out here in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. You see, in general, we have a lot more shower activity and thunderstorm activity that's ill-defined out here than we had a few weeks ago. That's sort of typical of the annual cycle. We're getting more into the heart of the hurricane season. But right now, you can see really we have not much in the way of any organized systems in the Gulf of Mexico. We're pretty much free and clear there with just some very isolated showers and thunderstorms out there. In the Caribbean Sea, the same thing. We have one system to look at in the Caribbean. That's this tropical wave here. It's actually just north of Dominican Republic here and also to the south as well, pushing to the west. Still ill organized, and right now you can see upper level winds are out of the south and south-southwest. You can see these cirrus clouds blowing off the top here. That is not favorable for development right now. The thing we have to keep in mind is when it gets over into this area here in another day or so, the environment is a little more favorable for development. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. But right now there's virtually no surface signature to this feature at all. So we're not too worried about it. We've been monitoring a tropical wave that's moved across the coast of Africa and continues to move off to the west-northwest. Here it is out here, just to the northwest of Puerto Rico. We may see a little bit of shower activity tomorrow over Puerto Rico on the southern end of this wave. But right now, most of the wave signature is well above the surface and not at the ground. And so we don't expect much development out of this the next 24 hours either. We're in great shape there. Farther off, as we go out into the central Atlantic, We have a trough of low pressure that's been rather active most of the summer so far. We haven't had any tropical cyclone development from it, but it's been active. And on the tail end of it, the western side of it, we have one little system out here that's a weak low pressure center here, or in the trough axis, and there's quite a bit of thunderstorm activity in there. We'll have to monitor this fairly closely in the next 24 to 48 hours, but nothing to worry about just now. As we go off the African coast, we've been monitoring off and on all summer long, series of waves that have come off the coast. Here's another one that's fairly vigorous, and the low center is about right here, just to the southeast of the Cape Verde Islands. Just a little while ago, we monitored, measured some ship observations out on here that were reporting 25 to 30 miles an hour, part of it in these thunderstorms, but also out of the south, indicative of what's happening here in association with this low. So it's a very vigorous surface low. We'll monitor it. It's a long way from anywhere, so don't get too worried about it, but stay tuned to the Weather Channel. We'll keep you updated on it. Now keep in mind, even though we're relatively quiet at this stage of the game, here's our hurricane strike frequencies, and the first thing to notice is there's no place on the east or southern coast that is safe from a hurricane in the long term. So you're all at risk. Some areas more risky than others, like Cape Hatteras and South Florida, and of course off the mouth of the Mississippi. But keep that in mind. Always be prepared. We've been monitoring a low pressure swirl out here just off the coast of Southern California, brought some mid and upper level moisture to the area, and you can see that that is a low cloud swirl. We almost don't see it on the infrared imagery, and the mid and upper level moisture is starting to cut off. So that shower activity as the night falls should diminish significantly over the Southern California area. So we're not too worried about that, and we can see in the radar imagery that really we have very little in the way of shower activity along the coast. It's starting to diminish even though it's getting maximum heating. Of course, elsewhere in the tropics, we're monitoring this system that's continued to develop the last 12 hours or so. Moving to the west or the west-northwest, we don't expect any problems from it landfall-wise at this stage, although if it's rapid development, it could come up more to the northwest, but we'll keep you informed on that. And farther out in extreme western Pacific, we see the remnants of tropical storm moving into China here very slowly, and most of the problem with this is rain, not in the way of winds. So that's about it for the tropics. So let's go back to Jim and see what he's got in the central part of the United States.
Yeah, all right, we got rain, we got thunderstorms, and some of them have been pulsing up a little bit, especially around Detroit. If you live up around Flint to Shiawassee County, under a severe thunderstorm warning, and a lot of rain here converging, all the moisture from the Atlantic and all the moisture coming up from the Gulf of Mexico, just sitting here right over northern Virginia, western Delaware, and southern Pennsylvania. So we got some heavy showers and storms. Looking northwest of St. Louis, we're watching an area of storms earlier. They have weakened a little bit, but now as we look back in toward Kansas, some of these storms are starting to fire up, so keep an eye on them. Biggest problem, some of this heavy rain in Pennsylvania, going to cause you some slow go if you're getting a late start in the rush hour. We'll have an update on Weather Center next.
The interior Northeast is dominated by gray skies and rain, while the upper Midwest may be the place to be. Get the latest conditions nationwide just ahead on Weather Center.
I've got an idea.
Ideas can come to me anywhere.
More people express their ideas on a compact PC than any other computer in the world. Maybe because more good ideas